Hello and welcome to SASS 2021. Before we jump into the instructions, we want to start by saying thank you. Thank you for agreeing to chair a virtual panel. The annual meeting is often the highlight of the SASS year, an opportunity to share our work with colleagues, get feedback and advice, and to relax with friends who are usually scattered across the globe. We were terribly disappointed to have to postpone our Puerto Rico meeting until 2022, and we weren't about to let another year pass by without a meeting, so here we are. Chairing a panel, any year, but especially in this rather chaotic year, is a valuable service to the field, and we truly appreciate your contribution. As a panel chair, you will need to join your session roughly 10 to 15 minutes before the scheduled start time using the host login URL that was emailed to you by the organizers. If you don't have that email, reach out to sass2021@scandinavianstudy.org and ask to have it sent again. It is important as you need that login to be able to access key features like screen share. Cvent uses Zoom for their virtual meeting space, and by now we are all veritable Zoom experts, right? When accessing Zoom via Cvent as a host, speaker, or attendee, a new window will open, or you'll be prompted to allow Zoom to open the meeting in their application. We highly recommend that you download the Zoom desktop client in advance of the meeting. It is more reliable than the web browser. If you already have the Zoom desktop application, please be sure to run the most recent updates in advance of the meeting. You can download the Zoom desktop application here. A student volunteer conference organizer will be in your room for the duration of the panel. They will also join via the host login URL roughly 10 to 15 minutes before the scheduled start time, in order to make sure that attendees are muted upon entry and have their cameras turned off until the post-presentation Q&A begins. These volunteers will be your tech troubleshooters in the moment so that you can focus on keeping the presentations and conversation running smoothly. You will need to share the speaker login URL with the speakers in your session. You should have this in the same email with the host login URL. It is important that speakers use this link to join the session as it gives them access to key features not available to attendees, but does not allow them all the controls of the chair or volunteer. Speakers should also join the session 10 to 15 minutes early so that you and the volunteer can walk through a tech check. Make sure you verify that everyone has a functioning camera and microphone and that all of the speakers know how to share any media that may accompany their talk. Be sure to remind your speakers that if they would like to have documents or media available for download on the session page by attendees, they need to email those documents to mia@scandinavianstudy.org at least 72 hours in advance of the session. Please also be sure to express the importance of signing in early and checking the tech. No one wants to have to troubleshoot in front of a live audience. The Join Now button will not appear for attendees until 5 minutes before the scheduled start time, and no one will be able to enter the room until you or the volunteer has signed in as host. You do not need to let anyone in from a waiting room. Cvent will automatically allow attendees in after the host has started the meeting. When you open the meeting, please take a moment to remind everyone that all sessions will be recorded and will be available for registered attendees to view on for 90 days after the event. If you have presenters in your panel who will also be part of the DAHS meeting in June, please note that those talks, not the associated Q&A or the talks of any other speakers in the same panel, will be provided to DAHS and will be shared with their members at their meeting. Just like when you chair a panel in person, it is up to you to keep everything running on schedule. Be ready to start the meeting at the scheduled time and make sure you communicate with your speakers ahead of time regarding time limits and Q&A. We have tried to keep this as close to what we are used to as possible without missing out on the special features via the online platform. That means that we have kept each panel to the usual 1.5 hours and have, whenever possible, limited a panel to 3 or 4 speakers. In a panel of 3, each speaker will have the floor for 20 minutes, which allows for a half-hour Q&A session. Panels of 4 will allow each speaker 15 minutes for their presentation in order to allow for the same half-hour Q&A. Many chairs choose to run Q&A after all of the presenters have spoken, opening up the floor to questions and comments for all participants. If you and your speakers prefer, you may allow Q&A immediately following each speaker's presentation, but remember that you will need to put a strict limit on time to make sure all presenters have their full 15 to 20 minutes. We strongly recommend that you use the raise hand or the chat function in Zoom for the Q&A. As we know, it can be difficult to have a conversation when people talk over each other, and in the virtual space, it is difficult to judge when you can jump into a conversation. Using the tools available allows you as the chair to call on audience members and streamline the Q&A session. Please also be mindful of the time as presenters are speaking. We recommend that you agree on signals with your speakers before the session begins so you can notify them when they are approaching the end of their time. This could be through a message in the chat or by using the reactions functions in Zoom. If worse comes to worse, as the host, you do have the ability to mute someone in Zoom. Maybe we should have found some Oscar-style wrap-it-up music for this year. Speaking of wrapping it up, if you have questions in advance of your panel, please reach out to SASS 2021 at scandinavianstudy.org, and we will respond as soon as possible. If you need help while in your sessions, remember the volunteers are there to provide on-the-spot troubleshooting. Panel chairs, volunteers, and speakers will be provided with a direct tech support line to C-Vent staff in case you find yourself in need of more detailed troubleshooting. Volunteers will also have a direct line to Kimberly, Andy, or Mia for the duration of the conference.